We get ready for the exact next city council meeting, and so we will go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is city council meeting and public hearing for September 18th, 2023. I'll note for the record that all members of council are present and accounted for except for Councilman Hypes, who won't be able to join us this evening. And as always, we begin with a Pledge of Allegiance. So if you're able, please stand and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And before we get started with some of the business items, we have a couple of presentations and proclamations, first being the proclamation for Constitution Week, presented to members of the Daughters of the American Revolution. So if y'all will join me up front. You knocked yourself out.
Hello?
Thank you for coming.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Pleasure as well. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Well, I'd like to say that we are Daughters of the American Revolution, Patriots of Liberty chapter. I'm Deborah Kelly. This is Linda Absher and Linda Bush. They're both part of our chapter. And we're very excited to be here to help celebrate Proclamation Week. We've already given out over 100 constitutions in our community. We had a proclamation at our meeting last Sunday and went to a proclamation for Milton yesterday. So this is the icing on the cake to be here with you. And you should also know that we meet Sunday, the first Sunday of each month, here at the Alpharetta City Hall. And it's just our pleasure to be here for this special occasion. Thank you.
We thank you. So we do have a proclamation I'll read on behalf of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, for Constitution Week. Whereas the Constitution of the United States, the guardian of our liberties, is a product of reflection and choice, embodying the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law. And whereas September 17th, 2023, marks the 236th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it, and whereas United States Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through September 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, we, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, do hereby proclaim the week beginning September 17th, 2023 as Constitution Week in the City of Alpharetta and urge all citizens to reaffirm the ideals the drafters of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties. So proclaimed this 18th day of September, 2023, by the Mayor and City Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia.
Thank you so kindly. Thank you again for inviting us.
Thank you so much. Certainly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
So the next item up on our agenda is the Wacky World Donor and Sponsor Recognition. Ms. Shapiro, since we don't have Mr. Hypes here, Councilman Hypes wasn't able to join us. would you like to say a few things about this?
Sure. So we are here today to recognize kind of the kickoff of some of our early fundraising families and donors for Wacky World Next Generation. And so I have Jeremy Scott here with us. He's also on our Recreation Commission. He's going to tell us a few things about Wacky World.
Thank you so much. Like she said, I'm Jeremy Scott. I am a Commissioner of the Parks and Recreation Department, and I am chair of the committee who is working to coordinate the Wacky World 2.0 project, our rebuild and renovation of the iconic Alpharetta playground, and try to prepare it for the next 30 years to serve our community. Obviously, it's a very popular playground here in Alpharetta. It's our most highly used playground, but it's rapidly approaching the end of its usable life. So we're using some funds that were kickstarted through the bond referendum. And on top of that, we are in a fundraising project right now to try to get this project going, which will be, like we discussed in the workshop, a 2024 project. But one of the key elements, we know everyone has a whole lot of nostalgia for our playground, but one of the key elements of this rebuild project is making sure we make this playground fully inclusive for children of Alpharetta for all needs and capabilities. So it's going to be fully inclusive for special needs. Poured surface, apparatus will be fully inclusive, and which is really a key element that we want to make sure the community understands about this project and why it's so important and so critical to service our community here in Alpharetta. So.
All right, so tonight we're honoring one of our first families in Alpharetta who's donated to Wacky World Next Generation. So if the Juji family would like to come forward, we have a certificate of appreciation that we'd like to present to you from the Wacky World Fundraising Committee and from Mayor Gilvin. So here is your certificate. Thank you guys so much for being one of our first donors. Would you guys like to take a photo as well with Mayor? Yeah. Our Assistant City Administrator will take a photo.
Next item up on the agenda is the boards and commissions, and I just wanted to make sure and mention that I was going to reappoint Recreation Commissioner Cheryl Rand, who served long and well on our Recreation Commission. We also have some appointments for the Board of Ethics, appointment nominations.
And Mr. Mayor, those appointments this evening, I think we're going to be nominated by Councilmember Hyde, so we're going to withhold those to a later meeting date.
Well, thank you for clarifying.
You are so
I
very
knew he
welcome.
wasn't here, but I didn't know business is going to just be continued until he gets back. So that's great. So that'll be all of the boards and commissions. Welcome, Cheryl Rand.
Question, Mayor?
Councilman Dorito?
Yeah, are we going to get any sort of guidelines or how these appointments to the new Board of Ethics should be handled by the council since we're all voting on them? I have a candidate, so I didn't put anyone forth till we kind of understand the framework of how.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, it wasn't clear to everyone. If you have nominations, please submit them to Mr. Lagerbloom.
Okay,
Anybody who has any appointments, please submit them to Mr. Lagerbloom. We'll have a discussion, and eventually we'll have a vote on who will be approved to that board or commission. Any of them,
Thank you.
quite frankly. Thank you. Sorry for the confusion. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda consists of several items, first being the special called City Council meeting minutes from the meeting of August 28th, 2023 at 11:30 a.m. Then the ratification of consent of order and final judgment for parcel 15 of McGinnis Ferry Road widening project, the ratification of consent order and final judgment parcel 30 of McGinnis Ferry Road widening project. Ratification of consent order and final judgment on parcel 41 of McGinnis Ferry Road widening project. Ratification of consent order and final judgment parcel 64 of McGinnis Ferry Road widening project. The ratification of consent order and final judgment for parcel 66B of McGinnis Ferry Road widening project. The consent order and final judgment for parcel 67 of McGinnis Ferry Road widening project. Consent order and final judgment for parcel 68 of McGinnis Ferry Road widening project. And the ratification of consent order and final judgment for parcel 76 of McGinnis Ferry Road widening project. Do we have any public comment cards on this item, Ms. Shapiro?
We do not have any public comment cards, sir.
However, if anyone would like to come forward at this time, now's your chance. Seeing none, we will close public comment. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor, move to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion by Councilman Dorito, second by Councilman Will. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. Now we'll move on to the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. And the first item in the public hearing is Z-23-09/V-23-15, 2325 Old Milton Parkway tract. Mr. Woodman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The first item before you this evening is a request for rezoning and variance to allow for the construction of 24 for-sale townhomes on 4.88 acres in the downtown. Proposed density of that development would be 4.92 dwelling units per acre. A rezoning is requested from R12 to DTLW, downtown live work. Variances are also requested to encroach into a non-perennial stream buffer, as well as to modify streetscape standards. That includes modifying the width of a sidewalk, planter, as well as landscape strip. And I do have the location map on the overhead. Subject property is located at 2325 Old Milton Parkway and 210 Norcross Street. It's near the southeast corner of Old Milton Parkway and Haynesbridge Road. This is an undeveloped property, wooded. It's encumbered by just a little bit under 3 acres of stream, buffers, and floodplain. Haynes Park neighborhood is located to the south and west. My First Academy and Sabri Gubin Fine Jewelry are located to the west. There is a Beatty Facial Plastic Surgery and Chelsea Walk are located to the east. And then there are a couple of undeveloped commercial properties located to the north across Old Milton Parkway. The future land use designation of the property is mixed use live work, which does allow the proposed zoning and use. You may recall this property from about a year ago. A different applicant did have this particular property here shown on the location map. That request also included this property that wrapped and had frontage over here to Haynesbridge. Just wanted to call that out in case you recognize this. This is the applicant's site plan. So they're showing 24 townhomes. All the townhomes are oriented and facing Old Milton Parkway. The previous plan for this property that never went through did have a townhome building here that had its side to Old Milton Parkway. So we do believe this is a better configuration. As it relates to the variance, there are stream on this property. There's a non-perennial stream here, and there is some encroachment into the stream buffers proposed by this development. There's also a request to allow on the new internal street coming into the development off of Old Milton Parkway to only require a sidewalk on one side of the street, that sidewalk being 5 feet, reducing the planter requirement from 6 feet to 4 feet. And then the landscape strip is, the full 10-foot landscape strip is provided on one side of the street. On the other side of the street, it would be reduced to 4 feet. These townhomes are 3-story townhomes. Of course, new entrance off of Old Milton Parkway at the front. About little over 2.5 acres of the property will remain undisturbed. So this whole southern portion of the property, due to the presence of stream, floodplain, and buffers, will remain undeveloped. These townhomes are all rear loaded. They're all 20 feet wide. So they're all fed by alleys here and here. The applicant showed a 20-foot planted buffer along the east side of the property, and then they show a 25-foot natural area on the west side of the property. Just helps buffer the property while it's not required by code, helps buffer this development from the surrounding commercial development. Each of the townhomes have the required 2 side-by-side parking spaces in the garage, as well as the code-compliant driveway. There are 5 additional guest spaces down here, adjacent to a mail kiosk. There is a little over 12% open space on this site. They're showing it's about 0.6 acres. I think there's probably more than just the 12% open space, as they're showing. I think there are areas on the site plan that they're not counting for open space. There's a pocket park here, as well as on the south side of the development. They show at this location here, you can see the trail kind of crossing the stream and going into a gathering area at this location of the property. There's also a stormwater pond and bioretention area shown on the southern end of the property, closest to Chelsea Walk. It's an undeveloped property with a lot of streams, so there are a lot of trees on the property. It's never been developed. About 16 specimen trees on the property. The applicant is asking to remove 5 of those specimen trees. There are additional 5 non-specimen trees within the stream buffer that the applicant requests to remove, and that is for the purpose of extending sewer. So there is sewer down approximately down at this location, and they do bring the sewer and cross the perpendicular crossing of the stream approximately here. The applicant did make reasonable efforts to limit the impacts to the good specimen trees in that buffer. This exhibit shows some of the impacts to the stream buffer. So this is a non-perennial stream. So it's a total of 75 feet on either side of the stream. The outer 25 feet being the impervious setback. So the red area shows the impacts within that impervious setback. And then where the buildings or grading impacts the 50-foot buffer, you can see in this location here. The applicant is proposing a mix of replanting the buffer to buffer standards, buffer enhancements, as well as stream bank stabilization enhancements to offset the impacts to the buffer. The applicant submitted renderings of the townhome buildings. They are depicted in the Greek Revival style. Primary exterior material is brick. There's some metal roof accents as well. These units range in size from about 1,600 to 2,100 square feet. As I mentioned, they are all 3 stories and they're all 3 bedrooms. We did provide the renderings to the downtown consultant, who believes that the renderings generally comply with the design regulations in the downtown overlay. We did ask the applicant to look at potentially adding chimneys on either end of the building, and the applicant did do that after Planning Commission, and that's what you see in this elevation. You'll notice the first elevation is shown as Exhibit A renderings, and I'm sorry, this was the second document of Exhibit A. And then, as I mentioned, after Planning Commission, they did provide an Exhibit B showing the chimneys added to the ends of the buildings. These would just be for the townhomes facing Old Milton Parkway. So the chimneys would be added on either side of this building as well as this building. And I do have a change to one of the conditions to address Exhibit B. We'll get to that in a second. Of course, reviewing this application, we believe the proposed zoning is, it is consistent with the future land use designation of the property. In the area is envisioned to redevelop into a mix of uses. Should not have significant impacts on the natural environment. The applicant is showing tree saves throughout the property. The current zoning of the property, R12, has setbacks that are inconsistent of creating a walkable environment. So R12 has the 65-foot setbacks. So we would like to pull things up to the street in order to create that walkable area. We do not believe that the request would have cause excessive burden on public facilities and services. They have limited density to about half of the average density that's been approved in the downtown. And then, of course, the unusual shape of the property, there's significant topographic challenges on the property. Almost 3 acres of the property is encumbered by stream buffers and floodplain. And we do believe that the applicant can mitigate those impacts to the stream buffer on this property. The applicant prepared a citizen participation report. They stated they did not receive any comments. The applicant did have some communication with the neighboring property owner in Chelsea Walk and did make some agreements. I'll mention those when we get to the conditions. We showed this request to the public at the July 12th Community Zoning Information Meeting, and there were public comments in support of the request on the sign-in sheet. And then we did take this request to Planning Commission on September 7th. There was one public comment from a resident in Chelsea Walk with concerns over tree removal and stormwater runoff. That resident requested that the evergreen trees planted adjacent to Chelsea Walk be at least 8 foot tall at planting. And then after discussion, Planning Commission did recommend unanimous approval of the request subject to 19 conditions, and those conditions are as shown in the staff report in your packets. I will call out on condition number 2, which relates to the architecture and materials. Since Exhibit B was provided after Planning Commission, I would recommend a new sentence be added between the first and last sentence. And that sentence would read, townhome buildings facing Old Milton Parkway shall have chimneys on either end of the building as depicted in Exhibit B, elevations with chimneys. And then condition number 19, which is the last condition, I just want to bring that to your attention just because this is a condition that was added as a result of the applicant speaking to adjacent property owners. And the applicant did speak at Planning Commission asking for a change to this condition, so I just wanted to read that condition had been changed by Planning Commission. And that's condition number 19, developer shall plant a single row of minimum 8 foot tall evergreen trees and the 5 foot landscape strip abutting the Chelsea Walk subdivision. And that concludes the presentation. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Councilman Will.
Thank you, Michael. Because you do this every day and I don't. My question is on condition number 1. And it says lot yield depicted is not guaranteed. What does that mean?
That means that if they are approved this evening and then they come forward to a land disturbance permit and just say that there was something on the site plan that we didn't catch that was a code deficiency, so something that didn't meet code, that sentence allows us to point to that there's a code requirement for this particular item. You didn't ask for a variance for it, so we can't impose that on the land disturbance permit.
And I saw something else down in here that, under the question and answers, that said that this is not consistent with the downtown vision to become a mixed-use walkable environment. It's inconsistent. That is question D.
So yes, so that is related to the existing zoning of the property. So the point that we're just trying to make is that the existing zoning, the R12 zoning, has setbacks that are much greater than what we typically would require downtown. They don't encourage a walkable environment. So we were just trying to point out that the existing zoning really doesn't meet the intent of the downtown overlay. and that this zoning request to change the zoning does meet that intent.
So we're going from less than what we want to more of what we want, in other words.
We're going from a zoning district that pushes the building much further away from the street to a zoning district that allows it closer to the street.
Okay, I was reading that backwards. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Thank you, Mr. Woodman. Would the applicant like to come forward at this time?
Thank you, members of the council. I'm gonna take my shot with Michael's permission at using that overhead, and hopefully I won't screw it up. But my name is Kirk Feldstuhl. I'm here with Smith, Gambrell, and Russell on behalf of Providence Group, the applicant. We got in the audience, we've got Warren Jolly and Clint Walters from Providence Group, and we've got Chad Lambreth from our engineer in case there are any questions. And Michael, as usual, did a great job. I want to review a couple of items, but let you know that we are in agreement with all of the conditions that were recommended by the planning staff and worked through by the planning commission as well. So everything before you, including the addition of this Exhibit B, we are in agreement with. All right, so first question is, why doesn't this show up? There it goes, okay. Good. So as Michael had pointed out, this is 4.88 acres on Old Milton Parkway, and he has identified the property surrounding it, but I think particularly of note is immediately to the east, we are adjacent to Chelsea Walk townhome subdivision as it relates to kind of the back half of the property, and that'll relate to some of the discussion that we'll talk about in a moment. The next thing that I wanted to show you is the site plan, and once again, as Michael had pointed out, this development is heavily burdened in the back half by stream buffers, floodplains, and there's even some state waters which we've worked to stay out of and have been able to do that. But because it is such a tight site, we spend an awful lot of time working with the staff to make sure that we are at least preliminarily trying to engineer the site a little bit, so we're trying to avoid having to come back for some sort of modifications. And it has also constrained a little bit about of what we're able to do. So we took that extra time, and I do think it's important too to point out, as Michael did, the prior rezoning and which was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. It's nearly the same, but there are those improvements, and the one that Michael had pointed out that I think is of particular note is that now all of the townhomes are front-facing on Old Milton, and they're all rear-loaded in terms of the parking. That's caused us to add some alleys that constrain the site a little bit, but we think that the project is improved over the first application. The next slide, and I'm not going to show them all. These are the elevations. I just want to make sure that we are explaining the product that we're putting forward, and I won't go into the details because Michael's done a good job of explaining it. But it is important to note that it does fit in with the downtown overlay. We added the chimney elevations, which were requested by the staff, and of course we'll work with the downtown review board as that at the time that it becomes appropriate. So we feel like we've come up with the right product, and the next thing that I want to show you is So because the site is constrained, there is some stream buffer encroachment. And if you just look at sort of the colors, but everything but the green, that's the encroachment that's required. Again, we took the time we needed to try to limit the amount of encroachment that's required. But the green represents what we intend to mitigate. I think that's important because there's about 14,000 square feet of encroachment, but there's about 64,000 square feet of mitigation, well beyond what would ordinarily be required. And the reason that we felt like that was important is because it really allows us to take the back half of the property and improve it by stabilizing banks, cleaning it up, improving the water filtration, getting rid of some of the invasive species, and really turning it into a place where people can walk and use it as an amenity, and it ties in with the park piece that we have as one of the pocket parks. So we feel like that was an important element for us to do. The other thing that I did want to point out is probably, I don't know that I need to go back and identify it in the site plan, but we did have some communication with some of the neighbors that are along Chelsea Walk. There were a few of them, and there were really two items that they raised as concerns or interests that we felt like that we could help them with. There was actually a tree, not a specimen tree, right along the property line. Even though it wasn't a specimen tree, we felt like it was important to them, so we were able to work with our engineers and work on the grading plan and preserve that tree, which now is in the site. It's reflected on the site plan, but it is also in our tree plan. So we were able to do that, and then, as Michael had mentioned, really along the border to be able to add those evergreens at an 8 feet height, which was requested. So we look forward to any questions, happy to answer any questions, and we'll reserve the rest of our time, but thank you.
Thanks, sir. Do you have any questions from council on this item? Thank you very much, sir. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if anyone's there that wants to speak out, now's your opportunity. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'd offer a motion this evening to approve item Z-23-09/V-23-15, Providence Group 2325 Old Milton Parkway, with the addition to condition number 2 as presented tonight by Mr. Woodman, addressing townhome buildings facing Old Milton Parkway shall have chimneys on either end of the building as depicted in Exhibit B. And then understand that the addition of condition change to number 19 was accepted by the applicant.
Have a motion. Do we have a second? Have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Councilman Mitchell. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve as outlined by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. Congratulations. Next, we'll move on to the next item under the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting, and that is PH-23-12, gated subdivision 1580 Mayfield Road. Mr. Woodman, once again, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The next item is a public hearing request to allow a 5-lot subdivision to be gated. So requests for gating of subdivisions have to be approved by City Council. In the downtown, we don't allow it. So if you want a gate in downtown, you have to request a variance. Everywhere else except for downtown, it's just a public hearing request to council. This property is located at 1580 Mayfield Road. It's on the north side of Mayfield Road between Gransley and Harrington Falls subdivision. I have the location map here. And this property was before you back on May 1st of this year for a rezoning to R22 for a 5-lot subdivision that was approved. The applicant had come back to me after the zoning, or actually I believe that they submitted, or were going to submit for land disturbance permit, and had a gate shown, and we let them know that that would require council approval, so they had to go back through this process. This is the applicant's site plan, so you have the 5-lot subdivision here. And so they do show a gated entry at this location here. The gated entry provides stacking space for 4 passenger vehicles as well as U-turn, accommodating the turning radii of a delivery truck between the call box and the gates. So if a passenger vehicle or delivery truck were to approach the gate, they would call to gain access at this location here. If no one were to answer that call, for example, a delivery truck, they can make an uninterrupted U-turn at this location and pull out so that you don't have vehicles stacking up into the public right-of-way, into Mayfield Road. And then, of course, they do have the required call box and gates, with the gates. On the gated entrance, the applicant, I don't know if you can see this exhibit here, but this is the gated entrance depicted at this at the entrance to this community. They're showing brick columns with lighting and 5-rail horse fence done in a metal gate. The applicant also provided a landscape plan of the frontage of the development as well as the median here. So this is the landscape plan. So they did provide a decorative landscape plan at that entrance. Of course, our department consulted with the city's Public Works Department. We did provide, based on our conversation with Public Works, we did provide appropriate stacking length, turnaround radii, and other considerations to the applicant, and they did design it on the site plan as we identified to them. The applicant also provided a citizen participation report. They did indicate that they communicated with 2 property owners in Harrington Falls. Concerns of those property owners were over safety on Mayfield Road as well as maintaining an existing curb cut on the property to the west. The city also received communication from a resident in Harrington Falls with safety concerns on Mayfield. That resident did request a deceleration lane, turning lane into this development, as well as ample stacking for vehicles. We do believe that we've addressed the concern over ample stacking. With regard to the decel lane, we did provide that to our Public Works Director, and there was a good point that was made about the not having a decel lane there, and we don't think that Public Works did not believe that it was necessary along Mayfield, and that it would also serve as a design measure to help control the speeds on Mayfield. So if a car has to slow down to pull in here instead of pulling into a decel lane, they're going to inadvertently slow traffic down behind them. So it serves as a traffic calming measure. We also showed this request to the public at the August 9th Community Zoning Information Meeting. There was one public comment on the sign-in sheet with concerns over stop traffic on Mayfield, as well as no decel lane. Of course, reviewing the request, the applicant did provide the measures, the design measures that we provided to them with regard to stacking, turnaround. And staff is recommending approval of the applicant's request subject to 4 conditions. The conditions tied to this particular site plan. They require that the gated and subdivision and private streets be maintained by the HOA. We also note the materials at the gated entrance shown on the site plan, as well as the landscape plan that was provided, and requiring gate access be provided by siren keypad and Knox box. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Any questions from council?
Actually,
Councilman Dorito?
wait for the developer to present.
No questions for staff then? I just have one question, Michael. Is on the sign-in sheet from the CZIM, there's discussion about concerns about a tornado siren will not be moved. Are you familiar with what that's about?
I'm not familiar. I was at that CZIM, but I wasn't there when the applicant was having that conversation, if there was even a conversation beyond what was on the sign-in sheet. They
Okay.
may have some more information about it, though.
Okay, thank you. Have no other questions for you. We appreciate your service on that matter. Very thorough. Ms. Shapiro?
We have no public comment cards.
Okay. Would the applicant like to come forward at this time?
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Ethan Underwood with Miles Hansford, LLC. Our address is 202 Triple Gap Road, Cumming, Georgia, 30040. Mr. Drinker, could you mind switching control? Let's see here. All right, hold on one second. Excellent. As stated, we were here back in March of this last year, and the City Council did approve an R22 zoning on the site. And so one of the questions you may have is, why are you back here so quickly? And from that, what we did want to present to you, I'll take responsibility for this, because zoning condition number 4 of the zoning applications is very specific that this is going to be a private street. My understanding was that that approval allowed the gate. I was educated otherwise, so we thought we had taken care of that at the time, but now we're here back not to change the deal or modify what we had originally presented, but now that we know that we have to get specific approval for a gate, that's why we're back. So with that, we did work very closely with the neighbors. It took us a long time to try to get their consent, so we're certainly not here to try to do a switcheroo or change up anything that we had presented to them. This was simply a misunderstanding. But with that, as stated, staff did look at this very thoroughly. We did hear from some of the neighbors, obviously, because the biggest concern we heard was we don't want traffic backing up into Mayfield Drive or Mayfield Road, and we agree completely, nor do any of the residents in this site. So what staff noted in the report and what was specified by the engineering of this site was that your standard requires room for stacking for 1 delivery truck plus 2 vehicles. This is designed to provide stacking for 1 delivery truck plus 4 vehicles. So it's overbuilt, it's overdesigned. It's also been landscaped. We'll get into the landscape design so that it's attractive and not just a big horseshoe. But as also noted, we had one of the neighbors who said, well, I would really like a deceleration lane. We think that would allow traffic to keep moving along Mayfield. And what we were told by staff was, we really are not supportive of a deceleration lane because we like the fact that people have to slow down. People fly through there at various times of the day, and we like that people have to slow down. So with that, and you also look at just where this is located on the property, there's not room for a deceleration lane. We know, we heard that request, but even if you don't approve the gate today, there's no room to have a deceleration lane at this location. So what I think the key that we're asking you all to consider is there adequate stacking, and does it meet the design requirements that we're looking for? As stated, this does meet your specifications. There was a site distance study that was submitted to the city. Staff determined that that site distance was adequate. So with that, this is the landscaping plan. It shows that Mr. Woodman got into. We can get into details as you like, but it is specified by plant species. This zooms in and shows you a little bit more of it. And then finally, the gate design. We think that this is, it works well with the surrounding neighbors. One of the concerns that we had from the folks at Harrington Falls was this complementary? And in fact, there's a zoning condition that says thou shalt have a complementary entrance to the adjoining property. So we feel that the design, I think this was the third that was submitted to staff before they said, yes, this looks more fitting in the area. So we think we have done that. We understand that their neighbors don't have gates, but we don't think this will detract from that. And in fact, frankly, it makes the lots more valuable to be in a gated subdivision. So we think it makes sense for the area. One last concern I think that was voiced in an email that went to City Council was, well, does this somehow drive criminals to other surrounding areas? And respectfully, if you can't get in the subdivision, we think that's the deterrent. So we think that's really not a significant concern. We think the biggest concern is stacking. We've addressed that. We think the second biggest concern is site distance. We've addressed that. And we would respectfully request that you approve this gate. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, and we'll reserve the remainder of our time.
Councilman Mitchell?
Thank you for being here. You do understand that by making it a private street, you all are responsible for the repaving of that street for potholes, things like that, and you're going to make that abundantly clear to all the 5 homeowners, is that correct?
That is correct. And again, Councilman, it's already approved as private streets. It was just the gate was not. So we have to go through that exercise. But yes, our folks understand that they are responsible, and the city's not going to be maintaining that street.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other? Councilman DeRito?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick questions. As you already mentioned, Ms. Underwood, that you got this approved back on May 1st. And I'm assuming, I can't recall, but there wasn't a gate depicted in that presentation, correct?
Correct.
And that's why you're coming back, because you
Correct.
assumed private street, you could put in your gate without. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Got it. And other than what you just mentioned, that it increases the value of the lots, is there any other reasons why you'd want a gate there?
Well, it's certainly security. It increases the value of the lots from being able to sell. The folks who are buying in there, they want more security. And I guess it provides some element of exclusivity, but the main thing is security.
And the way, well, when I look at a gated community, usually the community itself has some sort of barriers that you can't get into the community from the surrounding areas, the homes, whatever. And I've never, at least I'm not aware of a gated community where people could access going along the side of the homes into the subdivision. So I'm not sure what the gated community, what the gate is doing. And the reason why I say that is if there was other reasons to put the gate, then I probably wouldn't have as much a concern about the surrounding communities that don't have gates and keeping some consistent aesthetics in that area of the city. So I just thought I'd throw that out and ask for some comments about my concerns on that.
Sure. From a security standpoint, we think the gate serves the purpose by not allowing vehicles where people can take large objects off. We assume that even without a gate on the perimeter, people aren't going to be walking down the street with a television or other type of electronics that they've stolen out of someone's home. So really keeping vehicular access from inside the interior, that's the security measure that's being provided. And again, from an aesthetic standpoint, staff had similar concerns. They didn't want something that was so ornate that it just stuck out. They didn't want something that was completely boring. We think we struck the happy median to complement the adjoining properties.
Would it be a problem if you didn't have the gate?
We would prefer to have the gate, sir.
Would it be a problem if you didn't have the gate?
Would it be a problem if we didn't have a gate?
Would it do something to the project that?
It certainly would be a less secure, if we're trying to market security to these residents and you don't have the gate, that obviously takes that feature away.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Binder.
Y'all aren't tied in with the HOAs from the adjoining neighborhoods, correct? Like
No.
like I know sometimes in Windward and the east side, we've had adjoining neighborhoods join in on the bigger neighborhood, sharing the HOA. There's no kind of partnership with HOA, or is there?
There was discussions about an option to share costs for amenities. So when we discussed this, particularly with Harrington Falls, we entered into an agreement where our folks could request to utilize and pay into their amenities. But it was not, there's not a requirement to join their HOA. It's more of a
No
shared-
discussion of how their houses look, or, some things that other HOAs have.
There were.
Like a
There were.
design review.
Yes, there were discussions about that.
Is that currently part of the agreement?
Yes,
So the design and look of the houses?
correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant?
If I may elaborate that, though, there were specific architectural renderings that were attached to the underlying zoning. So they get to prove the final product, but we do still have some very strict guidelines that were attached to the underlying zoning.
So in regards to this gate, in talking to Harrington Falls, was that reviewed as part of their architecture review or anything? Or did they give a go, no go, or no decision, didn't matter to them?
No, sir, and we've had one response from our public participation efforts from one person, and.
But the HOA board in particular?
No, not from.
They've been
The HOA
approached?
board has not voiced an opinion on this. We had
Okay.
one person who's articulated concern.
I'll ask you the same question I asked Michael a minute ago. Do you know anything about this tornado siren?
We don't, I remember the lady at the CZIM asked about that, but we're not.
But it's not on the applicant's
I was
project?
asking my client, we're not familiar that it's on the
Okay.
property.
I was just curious. It
Sure.
Kind of caught me by surprise. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if there's anyone that would like to come forward and speak on this item, now is your chance to do so. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'd offer a motion this evening to approve PH-23-12 gated subdivision at 1580 Mayfield Road as presented this evening.
Commissioner Merkel, may I interrupt real quick? I'm so sorry. On condition 1, the applicant did brought up to me that the reference that I had to the civil engineer in condition 1 was incorrect. BC should be changed to ACR in condition 1. My apologies.
Okay. Then I retract my motion and offer a new one. I would offer a motion this evening to approve item PH-23-12 gated subdivision / 1580 Mayfield Road with a change in condition 1 to reflect the actual name ACR Engineering, which will replace BC Engineering.
Second.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, a second by Councilman Dorito. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion as outlined by Mayor Pro Tem, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Next public hearing item is PH-23-15 McCoy Way Road Abandonment. Mr. Woodman, you're on a roll.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The next request is a request for road abandonment. This is a 1,284 square foot remnant portion of McCoy Way right-of-way. That's in the Emerson Hall subdivision off of Charlotte Drive. If approved, the applicant, which is a nearby neighboring property owner, would could purchase that piece of land from the city and incorporate it into their property. So I have the location map here. So the applicant requesting to abandon this portion of right-of-way is the adjacent property immediately to the south. That's 12200 McCoy Way. And as I mentioned earlier, it's in the Emerson Hall subdivision. As part of the applicant's right-of-way abandonment application, they did contact the two other residential properties that are touching this remnant piece of right-of-way. So there is the property owner to the east as well as the property owner to the north. Neither of those property owners, based on the applicant's application, were interested in acquiring that piece of right-of-way. So if the city does abandon a particular piece of right-of-way, it must be offered for sale to the adjacent touching properties. So the applicant has reached out to those two properties, and they're not interested in this property. With this process, the applicant did notify those property owners. We did note that abandoning this piece of right-of-way would not restrict access or deny access to a piece of property. And then as part of this requirement, this application, the applicant did have to survey the land in question. So the remnant right-of-way is surveyed here. You can see there is a sewer easement that runs from the adjacent subdivision and runs into this development. You can see the sewer easement here. We did check with Public Works Department as well as with Fulton County due to the presence of that sewer easement, and neither expressed any concerns with the requested road abandonment, and therefore we are recommending approval of the applicant's request to abandon this portion of remnant right-of-way. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Councilman Will.
Thanks, Michael. It says they're going to purchase it, but I don't see a purchase price anywhere in here.
So after road abandonment, what would happen is we would get fair market value for the land, and then we would discuss that with the potential purchaser. So the value of the land has not been determined as of yet.
So just out of curiosity, what if we approve the abandonment and then the price is too high and they don't want it?
Then the piece of property has been abandoned and the other property owners could potentially purchase it.
That just
They've invested in the cost of the survey, so I assume in the cost of the application, so I assume that they have real reason to purchase the property. We can only offer it for sale at fair market value.
Is anybody capable of buying it at that point?
It would be only the adjacent property owners that could potentially buy the property. I'm not sure, I have to defer to the city attorney if none of those three property owners were to buy it, if someone else could come in and purchase it.
I'm just curious what happens if we go through the process of abandoning it and then they don't purchase it. What happens to the property?
So abandoning it just means it's no longer part of the city's road system or the right-of-way, but we would still own it. And so unless and until someone buys it.
So we're abandoning it as a road, not as a piece of property we own.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if you'd like to come forward and speak on this item, now is your chance to do so. And just a reminder, we typically limit the comments for 3 minutes. If you can just state your name and address for the public record.
That's fine. My name is Allison Hayworth. I'm here with my husband, Justin, and the address adjacent to the property we're asking for abandonment is 12200 McCoy Way, Alpharetta. Years ago, shortly after we purchased our property, everyone assumed that tiny piece of land was ours. There was very little improvement, very little taking care of it. We were going to add a retaining wall on both sides of our driveway. Everything's great. We did a survey and come to find out that property is not ours. The property line actually runs under our driveway, which means part of our driveway, our irrigation system, and our mailbox isn't even on our property. So what we've kind of gone back and forth. We'd like the opportunity to purchase this property so that we can continue to improve on the property and incorporate it into our existing property. And the HOA doesn't really seem to mind. They don't care. So.
Thank you very much. If there's no other public comments, we'll close public comment.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to note that there is a resolution. Has the resolution been?
Well, thank you for noting.
Yes.
Ms. Eswine, don't be so shy.
I was getting there. A resolution by the mayor and the council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, providing for the abandonment and disposition of a certain public right-of-way, McCoy Way.
Thank you very much. If there's no other discussion, do we have a motion from council?
We do have a motion from council.
Thought there might be.
Mr. Mayor, I would offer a motion tonight to approve PH-23-15, the McCoy Way Road abandonment as presented this evening.
Second?
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, a second by Councilman Dorito. Any discussion? Motion was to approve as outlined by staff. The motion by Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. Congratulations. You now have the opportunity to buy the land you thought was yours a long time ago. So that'll wrap up new business, or the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. We'll move on to new business. First item under new business is the resolution fiscal year 2024 local maintenance and improvement grant. Ms. Eswine, I believe there's a resolution on this one as well.
Yes, there is. A resolution by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, authorizing the mayor and the city council to submit a fiscal year 2024 local maintenance and improvement grant application to the Department of Transportation, Georgia Department of Transportation.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Sisevich, can you tell us what all that means?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As part of this FY24 capital budget, we allocate dollars out of LMIG, which is Local Maintenance Improvement Grants through GDOT, and we usually put it towards our milling resurfacing, and that's what we're going for, requesting this year as well. So we add it towards our milling resurfacing capital dollar amount. It brings our milling resurfacing dollars up to over additional $600,000 and change. We got the actual dollar amount from GDOT before the fiscal year budget. It was $676,316.63. This requires a 20% match, or 30% match, which we are using out of our milling resurfacing account.
Thanks, sir. Any questions? Councilman Will.
Hey, Pete, I'm just curious, is this project then in addition to other projects that we already have budgeted, or are we just getting grant money to pay something that was already budgeted, meaning that money is then freed up into back to the general fund?
No. So we plan the $600,000 and change as part of our milling resurfacing budget.
So we plan to get this grant
Yes.
when we did our budget?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Pete? Thanks, sir. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if you'd like to come forward, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mayor. I move to approve a resolution by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, authorizing the mayor and city council to submit a fiscal year 2024 local maintenance and improvement grant application to the Georgia Department of Transportation.
I have a motion by Councilman Dorito, a second by Councilman Will. And that was to approve the resolution for the fiscal year 2024 local maintenance and improvement grant as outlined in the motion by Councilman Dorito. Any discussion? Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. So we'll move on to the next item, which is invitation to bid. 24-001, fiscal year 2024, milling and resurfacing.
So
Pete?
We're using those LMIG ones that were just approved towards the mill resurfacing budget. So we advertised the project back in July. Bids came in August, and the low bid was Blunt Construction at $3.3 million. The bids were extremely tight, which was very encouraging to see. What was also very encouraging to see was our low bidder, the cost per ton of asphalt was actually about $13 less per ton than the previous year. So that is encouraging. Baby steps as we go along the way. We'll be resurfacing and milling over 14 lane miles throughout the city, with solo cement also occurring on Jane Ellen Way and Providence Road. Just for your knowledge, solo cement is when the subgrade is in such poor condition, I could resurface it, it's just going to tear up again in a couple of years. We pulverize the subgrade, throw cement in there, lay it back down. I'll let it cure for a couple of days and then throw some asphalt on top, or lay some asphalt, I should put it that way. So we've done it on North Point Parkway, Windward Parkway, and it works very, very well. So, and the contract goes all the way till July 1st of next year.
Thank you, Pete. And just because I know we've had some interest from some of our private road owning homeowners associations, since we've done this bid, assuming it is passed, wouldn't it be a good time for potential homeowners associations or even private property owners who have private roads to maybe reach out to the winner of this bid, because they'll already be doing work in the city of Alpharetta?
Correct.
Be able to achieve some savings in that way?
Correct, yes, especially if they're working in the same area.
Okay.
I mean, the biggest cost of milling resurfacing outside the asphalt is the actual mobilization of all the equipment.
Right. Okay. Just wanted to make sure and let people
They
know.
can reach out to the Public Works Department, myself, and we'll easily coordinate a meeting with them.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Any other discussion? Councilman Will.
Back to what I said before, so if it was already figured into the budget for this year, but you just made the comment that we're saving $13 a ton on asphalt. Are we saving money on the overall project cost on this then?
So the cost per square mile, or linear.
Versus what we budgeted?
So we budgeted, we went out and we thought the cost of asphalt was going to be much higher than it came in at. So we have approximately $300,000 left in the account.
So we're saving 300 grand over our original budget amount.
And well, we thought it was going to come up even higher. So that 300 grand, what we use for is we wait to see what's going to happen with our milling or surfacing. We have some 3-inch deep milling to occur. If we run into dirt at 3 inches, that $300,000 goes towards fixing those roads. So we always throw in a little bit of a contingency in there to cover what could potentially happen, but we are able to hit all of the roads that we have programmed for this fiscal year.
Okay, thanks.
And just to expound on that, if there were some issue and we had additional funds because it came in lower than anticipated, we would typically just do more streets. Oh, absolutely. I just wanted to let you know that typically we do
more.
if we have, rarely do we have a savings, but when we do, we try to do the next worst streets on the road. Any other questions, discussion? Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if you'd like to come forward and speak, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mayor. Move to approve the award of invitation to bid number 24-001 to Blount Construction Company, Inc. for an amount totaling $3,326,039.02 for fiscal year 2024 milling and resurfacing project, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
Have a motion by Councilman Dorito and a second by Councilman Will to approve the invitation as outlined in the motion by Councilman Dorito. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Pete. We appreciate it, man. Next item up is the Union Hill Park Design Conceptual Site Plan. Director Rogers, you have the floor again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are here tonight to seek approval for the conceptual site plan for the Union Hill Park. I have that displayed on your screens. If you remember, this was part of the bond referendum. Once this was approved, we did extensive public input and public meetings where folks could tell us what Union Hill needed to look like when we reimagined Union Hill. We took all those comments and gave them to Dix Height, which is our design firm for this particular project. And what you see there is the result of that from the public input to the design company. We did workshop this item, if you remember, back in April. I think it was April 17th of 23. We workshopped this with Mayor and Council when we were in the community room. We put a hold on this project because there was some idea that there might be some projects coming in next door that would have effect on this project, and we didn't want to move ahead with that until we knew what those implications might be. We are now to the point where we no longer think that there's going to be any effect from the next door property, so we want to move forward with this project. As you can see from the drawing, it has several things that are going on. We left the pavilion as is. We reimagined the parking lot. We picked up about 20 parking spots because parking is an issue at Union Hill. We have a play area. It's not a playground, but it is a play/gathering area for families. And there'll be an opportunity for kids to play on slides and some of those kind of things, but not traditionally. A good bit of stormwater, and you can see number 11 on there. The two number 11s, that's stormwater. We're moving the skate park to the front of the park, closer to Union Hill Road, away from the event facility. And we are also, one of the things that I really like about this is there's an opportunity for bikers to park in the parking lot, get on the northern part of the parking lot and connect to the greenway without coming through the park. They can just get on their bikes and start riding. So we're excited about this. It's a good flow, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have. I will tell you that once this design is approved, if it's approved tonight, then we'll go to construction drawings. Once we get construction drawings, then we'll go RFP and get the park built.
Thanks, sir. Do we have any questions for Director Rogers? Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you. Director Rogers, I noticed you've crossed out the reclaimed concrete. So now we're going to recycle that and use actual stones. Is that correct?
We will. I don't know if we're going to recycle the concrete. We'll deal with that, but we are going to use landscape materials such as stone. We're not going to use the concrete from the particular park.
Thank God Almighty.
It won't be reused concrete. We did hear that at the workshop.
Good. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Thank you, Director Rogers.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if you'd like to come forward and speak on this item, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I offer a motion this evening to approve the Union Hill Park Design Conceptual Site Plan as presented tonight by Mr. Rogers.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, a second by Councilman Will, and that was to approve the Union Hill Park Design Conceptual Site Plan. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. Next item up is the Memorandum of Understanding, City of Alpharetta and the Mulroy Family Webb Bridge Dog Park. Director Rogers, once again, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item we also workshopped a couple of weeks ago with the Mayor and Council. The Mulroy Family Foundation wants to donate money for a dog park at Webb Bridge Park. We have worked closely with them, developed a memorandum of understanding as well as a dog park and a budget. As you can see from the information we give you, we're about $3,285,000 short of the $50,000 that the Mulroy family has given us. We're going to take that money from the reoccurring park enhancements budget that we have and build a dog park for the east side of Alpharetta. There are no The memorandum of understanding basically says the Mulroy family will give us money and we're going to build it and maintain the park. They have no responsibilities and they don't expect anything other than for us to build a park and maintain it. Be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Director Rogers?
I do, Mr. Mayor, just real quick.
Mr.
Morgan,
Rockerbloom, you
can
have
we
the
just
floor.
clarify that math? I couldn't make that work in my head. It's a $50,000 park.
No, it's a 53,000.
53, and I think you indicated we were over 300,000 short, but I think that number's really just 3,000.
Did I say 300?
I think so.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
We are not $300,000 short. Not in this project. But this project, we're
Just wanted to make sure that was
$285,000.
clear on the record, that we didn't have a $300,000
I was
shortfall.
wondering why everybody raised their eyebrows when I said that. Now I know. So it's a $53,285,000 project, and of which the Mulroy Family Foundation has given us $50,000.
Change my vote.
Yes. Thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions for Director Rogers? Thanks, sir. We appreciate it. We appreciate their efforts. Mr. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
If anyone wants to speak on this item, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'd offer a motion tonight to approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Alpharetta and the Mulroy Family Web Bridge Dog Park as presented.
Have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel and a second by Councilman Will. And that was to approve the MOU with the City of Alpharetta and the Mulroy Family Web Bridge Dog Park. Any discussion? I'd just like to thank the Mulroy Family Foundation. It's not very often someone wants to come forward and contribute this much money to the benefit of our community, and we're very grateful. That being said, all those in favor of the motion to approve, please vote yes, otherwise vote no. And it does pass unanimously. So that'll wrap up the new business portion of tonight's meeting, and we will have an opportunity for public comment if there's anyone who would like to come forward at this time.
We do have one public comment card this evening of a Laverne Blaine. Yes, if you'd like to come forward and address your comments to mayor and council here at the podium. And just for the record, if you could state your first and last name and your address for the record, please. And typically, we do like to keep comments under 3 minutes.
Okay.
Yes.
My name's Laverne LeBlanc, 1465 Mid Broadwell Road, Alpharetta, Georgia, 3004. I just want to make comment on the garbage pickup. They only have it for people that have homes and not for people that have apartments for a dump. And Roswell has a city dump, and anyone that lives in Roswell, it's free. It doesn't matter if they're in apartments or home. So I just didn't think things are kind of fair because of people in apartments cannot get it. It's just for people in homes, and then they have to pay $300 a year for it, to have a dump, like a city dump, where you can throw furniture out, anything, big items, and that's all I wanted to voice my opinion on.
Thank you very much for voicing your opinion, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Tom's already gone. I was going to ask him to explain a little bit about our garbage contract.
Apartments typically have their own commercial contracts.
Right. So there's no other public comments. We'll close public comment. Any reports this evening? Councilman Dorito?
I have one. Had the honor to, attend the Future Business Leaders of America's student group at Alpharetta High School this past week. About 150 students were there. Told it's the largest group in the high school. Very smart kids. Had a great time speaking to them about not only my role on the city council, but they're also interested in my business career, and they're all trying to learn business and be very community-minded at the same time. And I'm mentioning this because I probably got more out of the presentation than the students did, because it was really welcoming to see that we have students in Alpharetta, and Alpharetta High School in particular in this case, that really the future of our country is in good hands. I mean, we all hear about the stories of what's going on around the country right now and all the bad stories. It seems like you can't turn on the news without being depressed, and so I don't watch it as much anymore. But you know, when you get in front of a group of kids like this and students who really care about not only their community and their country, but they care about being the best business leaders in the future, it gives you a lot of hope that, you know, we're in good hands. So a lot of the smokescreen that we're reading in the newspapers is probably the vast majority of students out there. Gives us big hope for the future of our country. So I just wanted to point that out. It was a really good experience for myself, and from what I hear, I actually had 3 students come up to me afterwards and share with me. I shared this with the mayor on Friday. You know, boasting about Alpharetta and our investment in the Greenway and how much they use it and how appreciative they've been about the parks and everything about the city. So, you know, we don't get a lot of compliments a lot of times as elected officials. We hear a lot of the, you know, concerns or complaints. But these students are very active, at least following what's going on in Alpharetta, and it was really a breath of fresh air to experience it. So I thought I'd share that with the council.
Along those lines, I'll just make note, a couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go over to North Park for Miracle League's opening season game. And those of you that may not be familiar with the Miracle League, it's a special needs organization for sports programs that partners with the city of Alpharetta and has for decades. They have their own little ball field over in North Park. And Michael Haynes, former wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, is the director now of the Miracle League. And it was just an amazing day to go there and see these families who rarely have the opportunity to get together out in the fresh air and exercise and have fun with other families of special needs, young adults and children. You had volunteers from local high schools and organizations. It's just, if you're ever having a bad day, go out there and watch one of their games. It's really heartwarming. And so I enjoyed that, and I wanted to share that with you. Also mentioned, because Councilman Hype's in here to say it, the Alpharetta Symphony Orchestra had a show on Friday, and it was fantastic at the Methodist Church. So if you want to see some really great music, locally grown, locally run, please go over and check out the Alpharetta Symphony Orchestra. That being said, I think that'll close reports. I believe we do have some executive session. Mr. Lagerloon, do you want to address which items?
We do, Mr. Mayor. Tonight will be land acquisition and one update on litigation.
Okay. So I need a motion to recess into executive session.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Markle, second by Councilman Dorito, to recess into executive session. All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote no. And it does pass unanimously. We are recessed.
We won't have anything.
They have dumpsters. Correct, and then you just can't, not for furniture. Not for, not for like the washing machine. Roswell has one you can throw large stuff. I think you can throw your washing machine out there. Correct. But I'm looking for one that people can use here, a big dump in Alpharetta where people in apartments. I appreciate it. Can they look into that?
Thank you for your help, by the way. It was awesome.
I know. Just want to keep it out of the news as much. It's kind of like a coupon. It's free money. Walk away from that.
Yeah, they don't need the publicity.
What's that?
These assholes.
And I did. Colleen made me take a coupon. $5.
If we can, yeah. I don't like it, but
Motion to adjourn.
Second.